So I just watched the One Piece live action, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. There are a lot of things I really liked, and there were some things that I didn't really like. And I was thinking about this, and I'm thinking I'm gonna do it in I'm gonna do episode 1 and my thoughts on the show overall. So you can just watch this, and then you can kind of get the TLDR of what my thoughts are about the entire show. And then if you want, you can just watch the first episode's thoughts, and then you can watch the rest if you want, because then it won't be as spoilery. And then I'll separate the other videos into episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So what are my thoughts on the show? I think it was great. As far as live actions go, I don't think any anime live action adaptation even comes close to how good this one was. You could really tell it was a passion project by Oda and then the staff. Just by like a lot of the mini details that you wouldn't expect in the show. Just like Baroque works visiting Zoro in like episode 1. That's like talked about in the manga, but like it's never shown. So seeing that shown is really cool. Bing Sake being played when Shanks is at the bar with Luffy was really cool Easter egg. You get to see Smoker and Dragon at Logtown at Gold Roger's execution, which I thought was really cool.
受け継がれゆく意志、時代のうねり、人の夢。人々が自由の答えを求める限り、それらは決してとどまることはない。おい、海賊王！集めた宝はどこに隠したんだ？やっぱりグランドラインの中か！あんたは手に入れたんだろ？あの伝説の大秘宝！貴様、黙れ！あの一つなぎの大秘宝！ワンピースをよ俺の財宝か。許可なく喋るな！欲しけりゃくれてやる。探せ。この世のすべてをそこに置いてきた。
And it's really like if you'll blink it and you'll miss it. So it's really cool that they took the time to do that. Oda took a long time. I think he took like a month off and various weeks off from the manga to do this. So I know from like interviews and stuff that Oda, like pretty much everything had to be greenlit by him. And I really like that because I think his style kind of shows up in more of the episodes. But it's also been a little bit Americanized for a bigger audience, which I think may be alienating a lot of people from One Piece the manga because it is his Japanese sense of humor, but it's kind of endearing in its own way. So overall thoughts, I thought it was great. There were a lot of changes to the story beats, and it's not like the story is changed. It's not like Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, where like the first like couple episodes are kind of the same, but like by the end it's like a completely different show. It's like it's like it's mixing and matching some different aspects of the story beats. Like some characters will be out of the story a little bit earlier, and some characters will be in the story that they shouldn't be. But it all roads lead to Rome, and it's kind of like this, where they all go to the general same location and the same story is being told. It's just slight differences. We're making the story just a little bit different from the source material, which is fine. There were a couple points in the story where I thought, okay, because they did that, it didn't feel as impactful in the anime, and that's where I think it suffered. So I have the episodes in here, but I just want to talk about the casting first of all. All right, Monkey D. Luffy. I don't know if I'm going to say the name right, but Iñaki Godoy, I think was great as Luffy. I think he captures the childlike presence of Luffy really well. I think Luffy in live action is almost impossible because he's very aloof, very distant to people, but also incredibly emotionally aware. He knows what he wants. He's very determined and goal driven. But his responses are almost so cartoonish that it's so hard to adapt in live action. I think Iñaki does a great job of bridging live action or manga Luffy to live action Luffy. I think one instance where I really felt that was when they get to the Bratier and the rest of the crew are like, are we gonna like hide out here for the Marines and lay low for a while? And he's like, nah, we're gonna eat.
Nah, let's eat!
And I thought that was such a Luffy thing to say, but like in such a great Iñaki twist to it. And at that moment I was like, all right, this guy does a great Luffy. All right, Nami, Emily Rudd. I think she carried the show. Emily Rudd was a better Nami than she ever had to be. I think she did a great job with the show. She portrayed Nami's complexity of being incredibly greedy, but being greedy to give it away to people she likes. So it's like, and she plays that like traumatic childhood really well in the small glimpses that she shows in the first epilogue of One Piece. So I think it's great. I think the physicality, like her using the bow staff was great. She was a strong female character. Yeah, she did everything I love about Nami so well. So I think S tier, she was like great. Sanji, honestly, when I saw the trailers, I did not like Sanji, but I gotta say, after watching like the show, he is really up there. I really loved Sanji. He was great. Taz Skylar, I did not know who this guy was before the show, and I think he's from like, I know he's like a Spanish speaking person, and I thought they would pick someone French because I guess canonically Sanji's French, but I think he did a great job.
Order up!
Hey. What the hell is this?
I call it true bluefin sauté. It's elephant tuna, seared asparagus, and a sweet soy reduction.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Well, I call it crap. And the day that Bright serves a dish like that, little eggplant, is the day that hell freezes over.
If I gotta sling one more prime rib medium well, I am going to drop dead of boredom.
It's what we serve!
It's an insult to the meat.
He really sells the cooking, and I know I saw some clips on Instagram of him training and kicking, and it really shows. Like he did a lot of good, like great kicks, and I think he had the most challenging stunts, and the physicality by him was great, and his acting was great as well. I just loved him. I will say, I think the biggest gripe I have the show does revolve around him, but not his character, just how the scene was played, and I'll get that into like episode 4 or something. All right, Kobe Morgan Davies. I think I was surprised by how much Kobe was in the show, because in the manga he kind of shows up and leaves and then like pops back up in the story a lot later. But I think it was great. He plays like the innocent, shy, like recruit really well. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. He did a great job. Usopp, Jacob Romero. Let me tell you, this guy's really funny. I think from my years and years of experience of trying to get people to watch One Piece, I think the hardest hurdle is Usopp's arc, Syrup Village, just because it's not super exciting after coming from Buggy and Zoro and Nami's introduction. You know, I'm not saying like Buggy's like really great villain, but you know, you're steadily increasing in difficulty and like stakes with the characters, and Usopp's is kind of like a nosedive a little bit, and especially Usopp's character in the manga is a little bit, well, you're supposed to hate him. He's a coward, he's a liar, you know, he's everything you don't like in a person, but like his entire thing is he wants to be a brave warrior of the sea. That's his dream, and he builds up on that. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like this character right off the bat, I don't like the show, and he's in the show a lot, and I think Jacob Romero does a great job of making Usopp funny and a coward, and he makes he's the everyday man. If you were transported to the One Piece world, you'd be like Usopp, And I think he did a great job of that. He made me like Usopp so much faster, and I think it's great. I guess with Usopp and Sanji is that they kind of got rid of the more cartoony aspects of their character. Like Sanji has the swirls, and Usopp has the long nose, like Pinocchio, Usopp, lie in Japanese. So I'm glad they didn't even try to do Usopp's nose. It just looked way too goofy. But I thought he did a great job of making Usopp more likable way earlier on. Zoro. I don't really know who this guy is. Makenyu? Zoro did a great job playing like Luffy's first mate. I thought he had a little bit too much vocal fry. He kind of talked like this. Like we've been making enemies everywhere we go. I thought he had a little bit too much vocal fry in his voice for Zoro. But I thought he did a great Zoro. Yeah. I kind of wish he used three sword style a little bit more. But you know, he has teeth, so we should take care of those teeth. He did a great job. I liked him. He played a great stoic Zoro. I thought he was a little bit too edgy for Zoro in the beginning, because Zoro is like really lighthearted in the beginning of the story. And then he has like this event, and then he becomes more of a serious character because he's like, okay, I gotta buckle down. But yeah, I kind of wish that more playful aspect of Zoro was a little more explored. But that's my only gripe with Zoro in the show. I think overall it was great. Garp. Garp is by Vincent Regan. Garp is in the story a lot more in the live action than I thought he would be. I loved this actor though. He played. I didn't know I needed Scottish Garp until this show, but it was great. Arlong. I think this is the only casting I didn't really like, just because of the voice he did. And I'm like 90% sure the voice he did is in part because of the prosthetic teeth he probably had to wear. But, you know, as far as live action Fishman goes, I think Arlong was the better looking of them all. Like, Kurobi and like, I don't even remember the other guy's name, looked really ugly. But hey, they did Fishman right. Arlong, I just didn't like his voice, but the acting was pretty good. Okay. Oh, Buggy. Buggy the Clown by Jeff Ward. Oh my god. Talk about like star... Dude, this guy, I had no idea who this guy was beforehand, but he does a great Buggy, and he does a darker Buggy as well, and I thought it was great. He was funny. He does like the obnoxious like clown act so well. Yeah. Every time he was on the screen, I was smiling ear to ear. I love Buggy. Buggy's like one of my favorite characters in the show, in the manga, and so seeing him like this was like, whoa. I was just imagining him in like the later like scenes in the show, and I was just like, man, this is great. Love the Buggy. 10 out of 10. Shanks got a lot of hate on Instagram, Twitter, whatever social media for being kind of wonky, but I gotta say, like, watching Shanks, I think he was probably really well. I think he was really well cast. Like his red hair, I know it looked a little bit goofy, and all the dyed hair in this live action looked a little bit goofy. But you know, willing suspension of disbelief. I thought he was really great. He played like a great, loving, caring, like good pirate, and yeah, I loved him. I thought he played a great Shanks. Love to see him again. Dracula Mihawk. This guy is played by Stephen Ward, and he does a great job. I mean, he is probably the most anime-looking character in the show. You know, with the fucking outfit and the mustache. So, what are you gonna do, man? I thought he did a great job. He kind of played that pompish, like, swordsman, he knows better than you, kind of guy. And I thought initially he was a little bit too goofy, but really he sold it. you know, I think that you'll hear me say this a lot about a lot of the characters, that they just did a great job, and he did a great job. Helmeppo, I'm gonna have to rapid speed through these side characters. Helmeppo did a really good job from acting like a snob rat and making me like him somehow. Like somewhere in episode 1 through 8, I went from hating this guy to liking this guy, sort of, to kind of invested in his character actually. And I did not feel that way in the manga, so that tells you a lot. Okay, those are all the main characters. I will say the character I liked the least was Kaya's actor. And I think that's difficult. I don't think that's her fault, just because Kaya doesn't really have a lot of lines in the show, I guess. She doesn't really have like a lot to go off of. But I don't know. Something about it didn't fit well with me. Characters on this website that didn't show was Zeph. I think Zeph was probably the best casted, best voiced, best acted character of the show. I loved Zeph. Every time he was on the screen, I loved it. I wish there was more. Like, if I could just get a show of Zeph cooking, I would. Okay. Wow, that was long. Episode 1, I'm gonna mute this. I have the show right here. Luffy's... Episode 1, I would say, is the most one-for-one episode in the live action. Like, Luffy's in the barrel, he gets found by Kobe, Luffy fights Alvida, we get a glimpse of Luffy's strength, we get his devil fruit power introduction.
He's made a rubber!
How did that happen?
Yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum!
Shanks was great. Child Luffy was a little bit weird, kind of disconnected, but whatever. Zoro fighting Baroque Works was great. Loved that callback to the manga. Nami, I think it was great. Just like the initial glimpse of every character, you just get instantly, you know what that character's about. Luffy is a free-spirited boy springing out of a barrel, saying hi to Kobe, talking about dreams. Nami robbing the first pirate she sees blind is great. Okay, the first major change in the show to the series is, in the show, Luffy, Zoro, and Nami all meet in the tavern, and there's a brawl, and they see Zoro fight, and then Zoro obviously assaulted some Marines, and the Marines are like, okay, you have to go to jail pretty much for like 7 days, and Zoro's like, fine, whatever. And then Luffy goes to the Marine base to free Zoro, and Nami is there to steal a map of the Grand Line, which isn't a thing in the show, because like kind of everybody knows how to get to the Grand Line. It's just like getting to the Grand Line and knowing where to go, that's the hard part. But this is different from the show, and I thought this is one of the changes that I thought was great, because it just makes everybody's like introduction way faster. Everybody knows who they are. Everybody kind of like understands who they are. Like the characters are just like get to meet each other way sooner. Because in the show, right, or in the manga, Luffy and Kobe go to the yard, meet Zoro, and then Luffy and Zoro sail off, and then they meet Nami at, I think, Coco. They meet in an island and they fight Buggy, and then that's how they meet. So that's like a whole nother island. I thought this was great. They just meet in this one tavern, they get to know each other, and the adventure starts. And you know, Nami's gonna meet Luffy and Zoro and fight Buggy anyway. So what's the harm in having her a little bit early in the story? So I thought that was a great change. They kept the rice balls in. I thought this was also a good change. Zoro, you get a glimpse of Zoro's like character, and this girl really likes Zoro, and she makes him some rice balls. But in the manga, they're made with sugar or whatever instead of salt. But in this show, they made them with chocolate. I think just to appeal to a more Western audience, because I'm gonna guess like most American people have not had a rice ball, and some, you're supposed to eat it with like salt to balance out the stuff, but whatever. So they made it with chocolate. This guy Hemepo pretty much is like bagging on this, not hitting, but like kind of hitting this girl and stomping on these rice balls.
なんてひどいことを
And Zoro eats the rice balls off the ground because he doesn't like to waste food.
それ取ってくんねえか。
だから言ったろ。
うまかった。
In the show or in the manga, Zoro does that in prison, or like he's tied up on a yard, like on a wooden cross, just like. But yeah, I'll have like a picture or something. Yeah, I thought this was also a good change. Kind of speeds things up. Yeah. That'll play into it a little bit later. Axel Morgan. Okay. The first change that I really didn't like was Luffy freeing Zoro in the yard a little bit too early.
I mean it. I don't owe you anything.
I just think it's a waste of time for you to be hanging out here. There's something you want out there.
And I'll tell you why that bugs me. Is that in the manga, Zoro's tied up, and Luffy goes to him and he's like, hey, I heard you're like this demon pirate hunter, and you're really strong. And by then he sees Zoro eat the rice ball off the ground. And so Luffy knows that Zoro's a nice guy. So he knows he's a demon pirate hunter, but there's more complexity to you, right? And then Zoro's like, I don't want to join your pirate crew. And then Luffy's like, fine, but I'll free you anyway. What do you need to get free? And then Zoro's like, I need my swords. And Luffy goes to the base. In the show, in the live action, Luffy has that like interaction and then just frees him right then and there. And then Zoro gets his swords on his own time. And I think the problem with that is in the show, when Luffy grabs his swords and comes back, Zoro's about to get executed. And so Luffy jumps in front of Zoro and takes the bullets. And because he's made out of rubber, the bullets bounce off of him. And then I think that does a couple of things. For one, it shows Luffy's powers to Zoro. So Zoro is like, oh, this guy's a double fruit eater. Two, Zoro's kind of indebted to Luffy and kind of shows why he follows Luffy. And three, it kind of like gets them to work together and like jumpstarts that crew. You know what I'm saying?
だから言ったろ、俺は強いって。
てめえ、一体何者なんだ。
俺はルフィ、海賊王になる男だ。受け取るだろ。ここで俺と一緒に戦えば、お前は政府に立てつく悪党だ。このまま海軍に殺されるのとどっちがいい？
てめえは悪魔の息子かよ。まあいい。ここでくたばるくらいなら、なってやろうじゃねえか。海賊に。やったー！仲間になってくれんのかよ。
In this show, Zoro finds the swords, and then Luffy's fighting the Marines, and Zoro hears it, and then he comes back. And I guess he also feels indebted to Luffy, but I think the way that the manga does it is so much better because it's like more impactful, and it's like a direct, like Luffy is saving Zoro's life. I think that aspect of the manga was way better. I think it just feels a little bit weird for Zoro, who in the show has killed pirates before and hates pirates pretty much. Like, he's hunting them, he's collecting their bounties, and he just goes back. It just feels a little bit weird for me. And you kind of miss that aspect where he's like, I'm made of rubber.
He's made of rubber.
And Zoro's like, you must be the devil. And then Zoro like has like his whole proclamation where like, my dream is to become the greatest swordsman, and if you get in my way, then I'll cut you down.
約束だ。海軍と一戦やるからには俺も晴れて悪党ってわけだ。だがな、一つだけ言っておく。俺は自分の野望だけは貫くぞ。
野望？
世界一の剣豪になることだ。俺が野望を断念するような羽目になったら、その時は腹を切って俺に詫びろ。
世界一の剣豪。いいね。海賊王の仲間ならそれくらいなってもらわないと困る。
And then Luffy's like, "You were trying to become the greatest swordsman, huh? If the Pirate King would have some trouble if he had any less." And you missed out on that kind of interaction, and I just really wish that was there. You know, I think it would have deepened the show and their friendship a lot earlier, because later on in the story, Zoro is so indebted to Luffy, while he didn't really do much for him, and that's my main problem. Okay, the map to the Grand Line is a lot more important than it should be, but yeah, that's my wrap up for my initial thoughts of the show and episode 1. I thought it was great. They sped some things up, but really did not like how they handled Luffy and Zoro meeting. I really think Luffy should have taken those bullets. They should have had that interaction, and I think the show would have benefited off of it a lot, actually. And I'll get more into that in episode 2 and 3 and 4. Okay.